A death call. Minjun was an ordinary college student attending a university in Seoul. He was always interested in the latest technology and liked to use his newly released smartphone. One day, Minjun found a rare model of smartphone on a second-hand trading site at a low price. He decided to buy the smartphone without hesitation. On the day the smartphone arrived, Minjun excitedly unwrapped it. The smartphone was fine from its appearance, and Minjun immediately started setting it up. At first, everything worked fine, but after a few hours, Minjun began to receive strange notifications. At first, it was a message from an unknown number. It was a short sentence. "Remember me?" Minjun thought it was a joke and ignored it. But the messages kept coming. "I'm glad to see you again, and let's have fun like we used to." Minjun became increasingly anxious. He called the number he sent the message to, but there was no response. That night, Minjun heard a strange sound coming from his smartphone. It was as if someone was whispering. He checked his smartphone again, but there was no notification. The next day, Minjun noticed that his smartphone turned on by itself, and a strange video played on the screen during his lecture. In the video, a strange woman appeared and spoke to Minjun, staring at him. "You forgot about me, but I didn't. We'll meet again." Minjun tried to turn off his smartphone in fear, but it did not listen. He decided to reset his smartphone when he went home. After finishing his lecture, however, each time he tried to reset it, the smartphone refused, displaying an error message. That night, Minjun woke up again to the whispering sound from his smartphone. He picked up his smartphone and turned on the screen. This time, the woman in the video was coming closer, and her face had a painful look. "You are responsible for my death. Now, it's your turn." Minjun could never remember who the woman was, but her words became more and more threatening. Minjun decided to throw the smartphone out the window. But the moment he threw the smartphone out the window, it mysteriously returned to his hand. Help on the internet. He started looking for stories of people who had similar experiences in forums. One of them warned Minjun that the smartphone was a cursed object, and that the original owner had died from it. It seemed that the owner had left a soul on the smartphone in order to take revenge for his death. Minjun could not ignore the warning. He decided to throw away his smartphone for the last time. But that night, the woman appeared in Minjun's dream. She strangled him and said, "You can't abandon me. You have to stay with me forever." Minjun woke up screaming. There were actually red marks on his neck. He realized that he could not run away anymore. Minjun eventually asked the police for help. The police heard Minjun's story and sent him to a psychiatrist. But the psychiatrist couldn't help him either. Finally, Minjun visited a famous shaman to find a way to discard his smartphone. The shaman looked at the smartphone and sighed and said, "This soul is very powerful. You have to have a special ritual to completely liberate it." A ceremony began, and the shaman tried to purify the smartphone by chanting old spells. However, In the middle of the ceremony, the smartphone turned on itself, escaped from the shaman's hands, and floated in the air. A cold wind blew in the room, and the shaman shouted out loud, "This soul is very strong. I can't handle it." The shaman stopped consciousness and ran away, and Minjun was left alone. That night, Minjun decided not to resist anymore and to accept his fate. He read the last message, holding his smartphone in his hand. "Now, it's your turn. Let's go together." At that moment, Minjun felt the cold energy coming out of the smartphone, and his eyes went black. The next day, Minjun was found unconscious inside the room, but his mind was already trapped in the smartphone. After that, Minjun did not wake up, and the smartphone was back on a used trading site. And then someone else bought the smartphone, and the story was repeated.